Hello. Hello. Yeah, we are going ahead. So we are starting with Unit 15, Indian Poetry and Drama, 1915 to 1990. What are the themes of modern Indian poetry? And when it comes to the poet, Nizam Ezekiel and A.K. Ramanujan, we are discussing. And finally, about the Indian drama, Mahesh Dattani's final solution, right? And the Unit 20 is on women poetry. So what is the page number for Unit 15?
109, ma'am.
109. Okay, this is block 4th block, Indian Poetry and Drama. And new edition is 109 and old edition is 115th page. Okay. So in this unit, we are trying to understand what is modernism and Indian poetry, how modern Indian drama. That's the reason we are trying to understand. The last final solution is a drama, which is coming under the block of Indian poetry and drama. Okay, starting with Indian poetry from 1950s to 1990s. So it is we are trying to see, until 1990s. Even we covered some of the poets of 90, even after 90s also, but it is not in elaboration. Okay. This unit introduced to Indian poetry after independence. It surveys some of the main poems and their work, poets and their work, paying attention to language, technique, and content, while offering suggestions on how the poetry can be regarded as modern. And within the quote, they wrote modern. Do you have textbooks with you right away in front of you? You can see the quote as modern. It is in single quote, isn't it so? Were you able to understand why we kept it in single quote? Why? Do you have any? That means how it is modern, not general modern, but it is modern because of so and so techniques and themes and techniques. That's the reason we were trying to see from that perspective. Okay. Okay, so Nizam Ezekiel said time to change in 1952 was symbolically titled. It called for and heralded a new form of poetry that, despite working with the language of the former colonial master, would be rooted in India's diverse culture, sentiments, differences, and traditions. Ezekiel marked a break, a change from the earlier poetry of Torudutt, Tagore, and Aurobindo. See, there is a marked difference between Torudutt, whom we started between somewhere around 1860s and 1890s and 1920s, Tagore again and Aurobindo, and how it is different and how it is different from the olden English Romantic period to the present in the sense modern techniques that have been used in this particular period of time. Okay, how it is different, let us see. However, it must be noted that these two poets were not entirely free of influence. Ezekiel and Shiv K. Kumar. You know, Shiv K. Kumar sir is from Osmania University. He was alive and very much contemporary poet, and many of you might have been knowing about him because he was a professor in Osmania in our own Hyderabad. People who are in Osmania know him by flesh and blood, and he was there very recently until his recent collections were also there, and he lived for a long time and known for a lot of creative work, right? Shiv K. Kumar. He was a professor of English in Osmania. P. Lal wrote under the influence of Euro-American modernism, seen in the poetry of T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and others. So what is the influence of First World War and Second World War? What kind of veterans, I mean, whenever they're coming back from the war, the veterans got a psychological impact, and there is a lot of difference after the independence also. The influence was there even in the third world countries. Who are third world countries? All the colonized people can come under the third world country, where it is not a developed country, but they are coming under the developing country, brackets of developing. That means the technology wise and GDP wise, whether it can be socio, political, and cultural reasons, they are considered as developing countries, right? So the influence of First World War and Second World War is clearly visible in literature also. Modern Indian poetry might therefore be located in the historical span of 1950. See, we got 1947, our independence, and after that, 1950. So whatever that is happening right now with us will be recorded only after 10 years. Do remember, See, for example, 2004 or 2004 to 14, 2000 to 2014, before Telangana movement, right? Well, how it is being recorded, what kind of revolutions have taken place, what kind of social background was there, what is the cultural impact of the movement. All this can be recorded only after 20, because whatever that is happened before 2014 was not considered as, it's considered as Telangana movement the same way before independence is considered as pre-independent movement, right? But after the independence, what happened? What kind of cultural differences have come? What kind of social differences have come? What kind of economic developments have happened? Everything is recorded in literature. Parallelly, whatever happening in the society is recorded in literature, whether in different genres. It can be through the media of maybe through the media to some extent as news. We call it as news, right? The documentation happens directly regarding the progress of the culture, progress of the society. Indirectly and in culturally, we can see the documentation happens in literature. Am I with you? Are you trying to understand what I'm trying to tell you? Are
Yeah,
you
madam.
with me?
Yeah, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes. See, whenever whatever happened, I'm just giving you contemporary example. Please do remember, we should always draw parallel while understanding literature. Okay? Whatever happened after 1950 to 1990 was recorded in literature in different forms. It can be in the form of rebel poetry or revolutionary poetry or angry young man movement, whom we can, where we can see all the, there is a lot of influence of other nations as well. And in 70s, 80s and 90s, it is clearly visible in our literature courses, right? Yes. So how they recorded in literature, we are trying to understand. Much of modern Indian poetry was metropolitan in theme and setting. The language of the poetry often tried to combine English with in Indian form of expressions, as seen in Ezekiel, in very Indian poem in English. The poets also used poetry to express anxiety, doubts, and sometimes confusion about the tension between Indian poetic traditions and the English language. So there is always a dilemma, and this dilemma is about the anxiety that they are undergoing, because as per the language, English is a foreign tongue for all the Indians. And coming to the Indian culture, Indian norms, Indian society, how they are going to express their own cultural anxiety. See, for example, you can observe 80s and 90s. I'm going back to news and print media. Like whatever that is recorded parallelly happens. Do remember, art and documentation happen simultaneously in the society, right? So 80s and 90s, you can see how the media, for example, we can take the novels. People used to read a lot of novels. We used to get weekly magazines, and people are more addicted to newspapers and magazines as well as to the new media. What is that? Film media also. And the drama was not taking the first place. Before that, it was drama. The folklore was very clear, and local culture is reflected in that particular folklores. But when it comes to media of film and cinema, the culture became a, kind of unique. It's not a culmination of, it's a culmination, like it's a melting ball, we can call, where only one language is represented, and protagonist is always very very far away from the society. They are not, it is not the society that is represented. Finally it became a prototype. Are you understanding that what I'm trying to tell you? We are caught between the good and bad, and good is represented by the protagonist, and the antagonist. Who is antagonist here? What is the meaning of antagonist? What is the meaning of antagonist? Are you there with me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Villain,
Some
madam.
sort of villain.
Yes, yes. So, a protagonist is a person who is having a positive trait in the character. Antagonist is a person who is not having a positive perspective, but a negative perspective and a damaging perspective, right? So, we call him as an antagonist, right? So, don't use, we should not, as a literary person, as a student of literature, We cannot use the words like hero, heroine, villain, something like that. We can call them as a male protagonist, female protagonist, and antagonist, right? Okay. Modernism and Indian poetry. Sri Aurobindo, Tagore, and Naidu. Do remember, these are all from the mainstream society. Tagore has come with a great culture and his background was very strong. When it comes to Aurobindo, he is a very revolutionary poet and all his poems are written in a grand style, and it's very, we need lot of language, culture, vocabulary, and spiritual understanding to go through Aurobindo's writing. And when it comes to Sarojini Naidu, to some extent, she romanticized the rural area, whether it can be in the in all her poems, starting with bangle sellers or whatever might be. It is representing a part of India, especially from rural part of India. So how they are different from Aurobindo? How modern poetry, modern Indian poetry, we are not speaking on global terms or world terms, but how modern Indian poetry is different from the pre-independent period. See, however, Nizam Ezekiel and others of his generation felt that excuse me. His generation felt that mysticism and romanticism, the most important significant strands in the poetry in the pre-independent period, were inadequate to new nations. We can see many new themes and styles and characterizing the poetry of 1950s and 80s. See how it is different. Let us observe what is the generation. We call them as the modern poets, but what kind of poems they written? What are the themes of that, particularly with the modern poetry? A concern with new nation cities, because on those days before independence, we can see only handful of cities were there. Then it started after the independence, new places expanded, and all the new capitals of the states after 1952. See, there is always a parallel between history, politics, and literature. Okay, so it is recorded and documented. You can clearly see in the literature whether it is not directly documented like history. Do remember, history documents with the dates and the facts, whatever that is available. Whereas literature is going to record the society and this, the whatever that is the cultural differences that is happening, or cultural activities that are happening, or cultural changes that is happening in the society is recorded in the literature. So new cities are coming up. The quest for Indian language and idiom. So while writing, they wanted to write the vernacular, that means the local language idioms into English. They wanted to translate that. It's not a true translation, but it is a transcreation. Do you find any difference between translation and transcreation? Any one of you know about it? What is translation and what is transcreation? Anyone have an idea about it?
Translation means ditto to ditto. We have to change it from one language to another language. And transcreation is like following the same steps, ma'am.
To some extent it is correct, but translation is like exactly you are trying to find the synonymal or synonyms or equal meaning to that. But when you are translating a creative work, you cannot translate exactly what's happening. For example, I'll take one, again a media, cinema. You can, I think very recently one folklore has come into a blockbuster. What is the name of that Kannada movie? Anyone remember?
Kantara.
Yes, it's a Kantara, right? So you can see the folklore, the magic realism was very much visible there, right? The creation of the we can clearly see how the director was able to play between the past, present, and the future. Simultaneously, we can see the magic realism was clearly visible in the drama, right? So the folklore is coming up. But at the time of the, the Udu means, what is the Udu? The magic that is happening between the villagers and the special person. And when the person gets, the god is going to come and the nature is going to invocate. All this happening is not shown in any other language. But the director thought that the language will be the Kannada only. He's not translating into English. Have you seen the subtitles? See, they cannot translate that culture. They cannot translate that meaning of it. It's only the synonyms happens, which is very closely related to that. But you cannot translate exactly. Then comes transcreation. That means a nearby culture is shown to them. And the other person is trying to understand. For example, I gave one example of media, right? Cinema, which you can understand very clearly. I'm giving you one more example. See, if you take an example of daffodils, see, any one of you have seen the daffodils, daffodils like chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum, have you seen chrysanthemum? Right? Yes, we all see chrysanthemum because that is one of a floral plants that we have in and around in our country, in our own places. But when it comes to daffodils, can you see daffodils in India? Is it possible to see daffodil plantation in India? Is it possible to know more about daffodils? Is it plantation of daffodils? No, plantation.
It is possible to know about it, but not plantation.
Yes. Thank you, Dakshaji. See, it is not possible for us to understand daffodils because the geographical conditions of Indian subcontinent will not support daffodils to grow here. So, when a poet is writing, see, in the romantic poetry, we can clearly see how the people are describing daffodils. It's a great poem by whom? Who is the romantic poet who wrote about daffodils?
Is it,
who wrote daffodils?
Robert Frost? No.
You're all English literature students, okay? Do some homework. I'm happy that you are responding. But yes, even in India, we can find daffodils in Kashmir, nearby Leh area, where a lot of, it needs a different kind of geographical conditions. So if you are going to teach daffodils to our subcontinent or maybe South Indian students, can they understand daffodils better than jasmine or chrysanthemum? What do you think about it? So if a poet is writing something on daffodils, it is native to the poet, so he wrote about daffodils. When it comes to Indian poetry or Indian poem, or someone is writing on jasmine, you feel more close to that. You'll understand the concept very clearly because you can see the jasmines, lilies, chrysanthemum, all these flowers around you, and you understand better about it. Same time, the poet also is going to express his creative ideas through the known objectives, through the creativity, right? So the poem is going to represent the jasmine. It will be more close to the author or the reader when it comes to understanding. So how we are going to adapt the language with our own culture, with our own experiential knowledge. That's what we are trying to see in the conversation. See, the third point here. The attempt to enable the poetry in local conditions and landscapes, the tension between traditional Indian and local values and westernized modernity. There is always a tension between modernity and Indian local values. Do remember, at the time of even today, we can see there is always, ABCD. Yesterday, I was trying to tell about ABCD syndrome. What is ABCD syndrome? Do you remember any one of you? Yesterday, I mentioned about it. Anyone remember? American born, confused Desi. That is a syndrome. Are you with me? Is it my voice clear to you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So this kind of anxieties are always there in the society. We clearly understand that what is happening around us. We are caught between our values and whatever the modernity that we are surrounded. Same thing happens even with the writers also. That's what we were trying to see in the Shiv K. Kumar's or Nizam Ezekiel's poetry, and very contemporary. When you read some of the poets, we can see how it is difficult for the elder. That's what we call it in a general normal terms, generation gap. I'll give one more example and then we'll turn for this next chapter. And in this, we are going to, we learned about Indian poetry in English, and we noted the first generation of post-independent poets developed their own brand of Indian English, locating their poems in Indian context, even as they were influenced by Euro-American modernism. So they are not prototypes of European people. They are trying to give concerns. They are trying to address the concerns of Indian readers, and the requirement was there even to modify their modern concepts, right? These poets also began to address issues that were rarely discussed in poetry. See, they are bold enough. Before 1990s, people are afraid of speaking certain ideas, right? So it is about, again, a traditional and conventional way of expressing. When you read Torudat, it's more about romantic poetry and one with nature. Lot of influence was there on Wordsworth, influence was there on Torudat, and Nizam Ezekiel also we can see. But in the modern poetry, we can see these poets began to address issues they were rarely discussed in poetry. For example, sexuality and the desires and the body. So this is something which is new to us. When we speak about maybe the Sons and Lovers or any novel for that matter, even today, Indian poetry is, or Indian poems, that is the reason Kamala Das conventional poetry, right? Kamala Das speak about sexuality, about her personal life, body, and the desires, which is straight away from her own experience. And she accepts it in one way or the other. She is bold enough to say that. So this type of modern poetry and the tone we can see, which is always an anxiety between the conventional poets and that means traditional poetry and the modern poetry. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A conscious ironic tone informs many of these poems. In some cases, we noted how a deliberate attempt was made to appear erudite with numerous allusions, myths, and inferences woven into poetry. Other poets, however, developed a conventional tone, preferring to write, preferring to write poetry to communicate rather than mystify. Indian drama in English has been a very vibrant genre, with the most prominent works being translated from other Indian languages. And we have noted the significance of Manjula Padmanabham, Guru Charan Das, and Mahesh Dattani. So these are all the things that we were able to, I'm not going line by line. Please do understand, because of the time and the paucity of time, we are trying to just have a glance of it. So we had just, we were able to see how Indian poetry and why Indian dramas plays a significant role in postmodern Indian English, right? Let us come to Unit 16. What is Unit 16, page number 123? Do you have Unit 16 with you? What is the title of it?
Modern Indian Poetry, Themes and Techniques.
Very good. Page number?
117.
All of you take that. So this is on modern poetry and themes and techniques. Now you can see a sea change. See, a sea change means we can see a different kinds of themes and techniques are discussed in the modern poetry. It's not only about nature, water, rivers, love as a theme, but now the themes and techniques are changed in the modern poetry. For example, Indian poets since 1970s have become more confident in the use of language and form. Remember, it's not only the use of language, but also the form. Poems are written in their own. People always used to attempt poetry in the last because it's a little tough to express in poems. Poetry needs a lot of exercise, vocabulary, and it should be multi-layered. So people always used to hesitate while writing poetry, but now they are more comfortable with the language and even the form as well. New forms such as confessional mode emerge in the writing of Kamala Das and D'Souza, and Eunice D'Souza. So a strong individualistic tone is visible in some of the poems such as early Kamala Das and Rabindra Swain. What we can think of neo-romantic mode, the neo means new, remember, neo means new. New or neo-romantic strain deals with love, failed relationships, individualism, and is often deeply personal poetry. So there is a sea change, we can say. It is no more about generalized poetry. It's not only about nature, but it's more about individual, about the failure, about the love, about the failed relationships or complexities of relationship in different forms of, feelings of human relations also can be seen in many poets, especially with Kamala Das and D'Souza. We can note the following forms of genre in Indian poetry after 70s and 80s. Confessional poetry, Das, that means Kamala Das and D'Souza, and experimental poetry, Hoskote, Sandeep and Kolhatkar. Queer poetry, Hosang Merchant. Do you know Hosang Merchant is a professor in the Department of English in Hyderabad Central University. And he's very much in Hyderabad and a very strong poet, queer poetry. That means LGBT community, and how beautifully they are strong enough to claim their voice and space also. At the same time, Raja Rao, satire, Daruwala, and natural poetry in the ICM, and natural poetry, especially from South, Northeast people, right? Northeast India, we can see this nature poetry. Experimental poetry have already emerged from the poem of Arun Kolhatkar and has been taken up by Sandeep Sen, Ranjit Hoskote, and others. So these are from some, Hoskote is from Karnataka. And we can see Hosang Merchant as queer poetry and Raja Rao queer tones in the work of Agha Sahil and his emerged dates in 1990s. And satire as a form of poetry has been found many takers in India. Many of his poems official social commentary and sarcastic and satiric tones. So it is even poems as a social commentary. Do remember the Marxist ideology about the society or about the social concepts were clearly articulated in many poems of Daruwala, right? Love affairs, relationships, the purchase of photocopying machines, monarchical successions all become grist in the Vikram Seth's mill. Seth, like Daruwala, has tried in his poetry to shift away from the dark, brooding work that most poets in India produce. Puns, tongue-in-cheek comments, funny situations, and the fables of bestie tales from here. And there are only select exams from large. You can see lot of self is coming out, and how the individual is going to speak here. What kind of experiential knowledge, what kind of individualistic experiences are recorded, we can see in the modern poetry after 1980s and after 1990s also, between 1980 and 1920, or sometime between 2000 as well. Poets, the poets writing through the 1970s into 1980s like A.K. Ramanujan, Parthasarathi, Jayata Mahapatra, Nizam Ezekiel, and Shiv Kumar were exploring the tensions of the self and the world in their poetry. So there is always a constant tension and anxiety between the self and the other, O capital. So this we can see in Jayant Mahapatras as well as Shiv Kumar also. Poetry of the diaspora, 16.3. Are you with me? Are you walking with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So poetry
Yes,
of the diaspora. Yes, very good. Please go ahead. I'm not stopping at one place. I'm walking with my papers because it is important for us to have a glance of whatever that is there in the last block. Adelu, are you there? Anita?
Yeah, madam.
Anju?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Lavanya? Mahalakshmi? Bhargavi? I can see all of you here. And please take your book in your hand so that you can see what exactly we are trying to explain. I'm trying to explain here. Okay, so poetry in the diaspora, the 16.3. Nostalgia and memory in poetry like Gujarati origin Sujata Bhatt and the Kashmiri origin Aga Sahib Ali is also an attempt to understand the trauma of displacement and cultural adaptation. I think last time we were trying to see diaspora writings in different writers of novels, diaspora writing as a novel form. They migrated from one place to another place, another country, and how the rootlessness, how the nostalgic feelings are recorded clearly in their work, right? But here, even in the poetry also, if the people are migrated, as we discussed earlier, in before 1947, after the partition of India, after we got the independence, it's not so beautifully explained. I mean, of course, it is something very positive, and it is positive to all the Indians. But at the same time, the bifurcation and the partition happened, and lots of people lost their life, and a lot of trauma and displacement happened, and cultural adaptations took a lot of time to adjust with the environment, and they lost the people who are very close to the heart, and families got families are divided, and all the division can be seen even in some of the forms of after partition. Partition, that means partition writings have also come up in literature, right? So the same thing happens with diaspora when it is about Sujata Bhatt writing from Gujarati origin, or someone from Kashmir is writing about it. We can clearly see how nostalgic the people started to think about it. And Meena Alexander, she's from Hyderabad, and she's our own person whom we saw blood and flesh. And very recently, unfortunately, she passed away. She writes about beautifully on Hyderabad also, right? Indianness in their poetry, and diaspora poets have to deal with. Meena Alexander's poetry is beautiful for two reasons. And please go through her poetry, and her poems are, it's something like you are just wandering around Charminar, right? Charminar, any point of time you might be visiting Charminar. Is it a place with calm and serene, or is it a place of lot of people will come around and lot of festive mood will be there? What do you think about it? What do you say? Say something about it.
It's a festive now, especially, ma'am, during this Rosa time. A lot of activity takes place around Charminar.
Yes, yes. We can see the cultural, the richness of the culture. And you can see the Parsis and the Parsi culture, Arabic culture, and Deccani culture, and lot of festive mood will be there. That we can see in Meena Alexander. She readily describes how rich the Hyderabad is, how rich the culture, Deccan culture is, Dakkan culture, how rich the language is, how rich the people's life. It's not about richness like in the monetary eyes, but with the reflections of inner self. So Meena Alexander is rich in describing the memory and recall of their family, friends, and landscape. All the poetry, all the poems that written by diaspora writers, it's a nostalgic and longing for their lost homeland, anxiety at assimilation of new culture, a celebration of new real identities and culture. And we can clearly see in the poetry, in a small descriptions, how they are longing for that lost land. So the Nature Poet 16.4, you please do read Sujata Bhatt. We clearly can understand what happens inside the poetry of the diaspora writers. So we were able to see Meena Alexander, Aga Sahib Ali, and Sujata Bhatt, and nostalgic seems to be dominant theme in the diaspora writers. So Unit 16 is all about Indian poetry, especially with 3-4 people, and they voiced out their concerns when it comes to nature poetry or confessional poetry like Kamala Das. And even after the globalization, how people migrated, and the diaspora writing is also visible in the 16th unit. We are going for 17, Nizam. What's the page number? Unit 17.
127.
Yes, here it is 133. Okay. Belonging to minority, Knight of the Scorpion, background casual, the patriot. So all these three poetry we are discussing in the 17th unit and 17.9, Knight of the Scorpion, written in 1960s and 64. And he is also considered and comes under modern poetry. Do remember, Nizam Ezekiel's themes are different from the writers of before 1950s, right? Before independence or before pre-independent period. His poetry is more related to practical life and Night at the Scorpion. This poem begins with the impersonal narration regarding the scorpion. So this is not about the great valor or it's about something greatness, but simple things around us and life as a celebration we can see. He celebrates the life and the pain, grief, happiness, rain, everything in the scorpion, in the poetry of Nizam Ezekiel. So nothing is like in Telugu, if you understand, Kavita Kedi Anarham Kadu. Kukkapilla, Sabubilla. That means simple things also can be considered as poetry. And even they are called as poems of different genre. So it's a new genre has come over. And Night of the Scorpion is something which is very simple. And the scorpion is something which bites the mother. And what kind of pain, what kind of, how the people react to that, we can see there. Background casually. So this is also again second poem and published in the Hymns of Darkness in 1976, and is seen as Ezekiel's autobiographical account in life, and especially Nizam Ezekiel's autobiography, his location. So background and casually, that's more, again, you see, these people are writing from their own reflections of life. Remember, it's not something coming out of, they are creative, but they are not out of their experience. It's not something like out of the box, but something which they know, they understand, and they can express as well. That's what we can see in this experiential poets. And all the poems also. The Patriot, the Ezekiel earned fame and novelty in the very Indian poems in Indian English. They were seen as mocking Indian pattern of speech as well as modes of thought and ways of life. They are, of course, humorous and maybe even mocking, but it is a mockery that can be consistently the core of what Ezekiel wrote at the end, background casually. My backward place is where I am. It is ironic and mocking. It laughs all the way in which Indians define themselves, speak English, but it also parts of being Indian. Part of commitments made by Ezekiel to stay on in India, becoming a part of landscape and this people. So people may laugh at us, saying like, we are all, we don't have, even today, if you travel with someone, maybe nowadays these people are changing because of this kind of globalization. People generally talk to each other, right? When you go in a bus stop, people just don't see and read their newspapers. They talk to the next person, no? They'll ask their name sometimes. They ask the name and then they speak to us, and so we all can understand how it is important for us to talk to people, right? Maybe because after the mobiles, people are stopped talking, and after the corona, people stop touching each other. But other than that, even in spite all said and done, we feel humane when people laugh with us, when people cry with us, when people stand with us. That's the reason Indian poetry, especially Nizam Ezekiel's poetry, represents the community, Indian language, Indian experience, and Indian local backwardness also. So this is what explained in Unit 17. Please do read. And one or two questions from the Patriot also will come to you. Ezekiel is a very, very, very important poet in the Indian English poetry. Okay. I'm going for Unit 18, Modern Indian Poetry, A.K. Ramanujan, page number 143. Are you there with me? What is the page number?
136, ma'am.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Bhargavi. Thank you, Daksha. So we can see poet, linguist, scholar, essayist, A.K. Ramanujan. Yeah, A.K. Ramanujan, analyzing themes and language, focusing on three of his work. And what are the three works? A river, obituary, small-scale reflections on a great house. It's very important to understand how our homes, especially Ramanujan poems and small scale reflections. So it's a kind of showing a big mountain in a small mirror. So is it like the mirror is showing the mountain in a smaller way? So do you think like the mountain is small in size? What do you think about it? We can see a small, distant objective in our car mirrors also, no? So do you think like the size of the mountain is only size of the car mirror, or is it something else?
Ma'am, same thing we see in our eyes also, no? The big building. But
Very
the
good.
building
Very
doesn't
good.
become small.
Yes, Dakshaji, it's a very contemporary example that you gave us. Yes, whatever that we have an approach or whatever that we watch, maybe just because of that lens, the distance that we see, that is what explained in small scale reflections. See, the point can be seen as assertion of the nature of India itself. If you think of India as a great house, then it is to be noticed that the house takes into itself everything and then these gets lost. Things come in every day to lose themselves among other things, lost long ago, and the capacity of the house to observe all that comes in further defines by the fact that things get lost always among other earlier lost things. Thus, a pattern is set of things that enter, get lost, then provide the background into which other things can get lost. And the pattern repeats endlessly within the house and its history. See, as rightly pointed out, for example, when you see Hyderabad 30 years back, you don't find this many buildings. Someone from America is coming, and very recently, she was surprised by the the skyscrapers of Hyderabad. Oh my God, this is looking like, it's more richer than America and more richer than New York, something like that. See, all of a sudden you come to know like your own place is growing and it's absorbing everything. You can see that absorption. Everything is disappearing inside and everything is growing simultaneously. That happened 30 years back with is Ramanujan poetry, and even now still it is happening. Do you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
It's still happening in front of us. See, that's what we can see in the small scale reflections of a great house. So there is a simile, or the comparison is there between a home and a nation, or for that matter, a country. So 18.3 Obituary, written upon the death of A.K. Ramanujan's father, Srinivasa Ramanujan, eminent astronomer, mathematician, astrologer. Obituary speaks of personal, but can also be read as a generalized meditation on death and life. So it's obituary. Why you write an obituary? When a person is no more, and he after the death and out of memory in memory of that particular person, the person who left his life and who is dead. So we write obituaries, right? So this obituary is about A.K. Ramanujan's father, Srinivas Ramanujan. We all know, great mathematician, and he writes about deaths and daughters and what happened to him. And so it is personal as well as we can see even spiritual. A river. Ramanujan's a river, though it seems to be about a river, actually its subject is subtle for poetry. The poet is set in Madurai, banks of Vaigai River, renowned for the Madurai Meenakshi temple and center of ancient Sangam civilization. Whenever a poet is writing something on the native land, he always refers to history as well. So, Madurai Meenakshi, we all know about this goddess, and it's a very, very ancient city, and it represents Sangam civilization, and that means it's a rich culture is there. And it's not only architecture, but also the culture, the religion, the colors, and the deity. Everything is speaking loud. So that is coming under the river. River shows symbolic for life also, right? River always flows. It's not going to be stagnant. So like if you want to compare someone who is very rich in their life, we compare them with the life of river, right? It's always flowing, it's always fresh, it's a giver of life, and you can drink the water of the river water, and it's always fresh, and you can see the river has got a lot of life. It's not going to stay at one place, it's flowing. And you cannot drink seawater, but you can drink river water, right? And rivers flow, that's the life of river. So that's what we call it as perennial river, some rivers which are not going to dry. So river is about a river that is river Vagai, and it's a banks of Vagai river is next to Madurai. I mean, it flows in Madurai, and next to that goddess deity, Madhura Meenakshi. So this is about A.K. Ramanujan's poetry, 3 poems exclusively, and it is a many-layered and revealing hidden depths which comes into light upon repeated reading. You can understand what exactly and what kind of ironic tone and symbolically what kind of antiques are utilized in the Ramanujan's poetry. Okay, the last one, Contemporary Indian Drama, Mahesh Dattani, Final Solutions, Unit 19. What is the page number?
147, ma'am.
147, ma'am.
Very good, very good. So this is on Mahesh Dattani. He's one of the foremost playwrights in India today, and he's not only writer, but also a variety of themes. His themes are very different from rather regular one. And all his main themes and solutions are Final Solutions, a centrally nuclear family, the Gandhi, parents and college-going daughters, fathers and mothers, communal violence, of course, the major theme of Final Solutions. We can say this is not about the final solution. It's a very ironical tone that we can see here. Multiple strands regarding family, the way in which family works, a recurrent preoccupation of Mahesh Dattani, the major work, interwoven with these and concern with paranoia, resentment, and forgetting and forgiveness, all of which resonate within the family, but also regard the communal passion and violence. So this we can see, even this has been taken as one of the, I think 10 years back, someone attended this as a movie also. So it's about the partition, about the family, about the violence happening in the family and outside the society also. So this drama, and so as we started with poetry, poems, fiction, short story, novel, the last comes the drama. And what is the importance of title and chorus? You remember Shakespeare, chorus is important, chorus, because all the Shakespearean dramas will have the stage is very important. The stage plays a very important role, and chorus plays an important role. What is the use of chorus in the drama? Anyone can explain? Last time we had a question also on this. What is the use of chorus in the drama? What do they do? What is chorus?
Characters to the audience, I think, ma'am.
Okay, Zenith, elaborate more. What is the chorus will do? Yeah, chorus. What you're trying? Yes, go ahead.
Chorus is nothing but the author's introduction to the audience, I think, ma'am.
It's a prompting, madam. Prompting to characters.
It is prompting the characters. Sometimes, yes, rightly said by Adelu. It is prompting the characters. And not only that, sometimes in a satirical tone, sometimes ridicule them, right? They'll be next to the protagonist or antagonist, and sometimes they praise. Like, Burra Katha or Oggu Katha. You heard about this folklores, Boggu Katha and Burra Katha?
Burra Katha, yes, ma'am.
Oggu Katha, Burra Katha.
Yes. In that, you can see two people, the person, the main narrator will be in the center, and the two people will be left and right. They say Tandana Tana. Right? You remember that Tandana Tana, Tandana Tana. That means they are going to give a chorus by supporting, and sometimes they question the protagonist also, question the main narrative as well. They are the people who raise the questions of all the society. See, they are representing the society. They are giving chorus to the main person, And even they question the main character also, main particularly. They are the people who raise the questions. So the title and chorus. Are you able to understand? ఈ తందాన తానా అని ఎవరైతే అంటూ ఉంటారో వాళ్ళు తమతో పాటి ఆ మధ్యలో ఏదైతే కథ చెప్తూ ఉంటారో ఆ కథని ఎవరైతే వినిపిస్తూ ఉంటారో వాళ్ళని అనుకరిస్తూ మీరు చెప్పింది కరెక్ట్ అంటూ వాళ్ళని అజర్ట్ చేస్తూ చెప్తూనే వాళ్ళని క్వశ్చన్ కూడా చేస్తూ ఉంటారు. ఎందుకు ఇలా చేశారు, ఎందుకు వెళ్ళిపోయారు, ఎందుకని మీరు ఆపారు అంటూ సమాజం అడిగేటువంటి క్వశ్చన్స్ అన్ని కూడా ఆ వెనకలో ఉన్నటువంటి తందాన తానా అని ఎవరైతే ఉంటారో పాటగాళ్ళు అంటారు వాళ్ళని కదా, వాళ్ళిద్దరు కూడా అడుగుతూ ఉంటారు ఈ మధ్యలో కథ చెప్పేటువంటి ఆ వ్యక్తిని, అవునా కదా? సో అంటే దే ఆర్ ద మౌత్ పీస్ ఆఫ్ ద సొసైటీ. యా, someone is trying to tell something. Go ahead.
Ma'am, in Gurujara Appar House, Kanya Shulkam, there is one Burakatha regarding the bride's becoming widow at the temple. Is it same? The two people, they go on asking and he goes on replying.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that not only in, yes, that is one example, one of the example. Yeah, like that. This is something people in the course of time, when someone is sitting in the village, maybe 50 to 100 people are listening in small village and Burrakatha is going on or Oggu Katha is going on, the people will get involved and they are identifying themselves with the chorus because they are asking the questions of the people's whatever that is there in the mind. Or I'll give you an example. Have you seen any one of you very recently that movie Balagam? Any one of you? Balagam is a very recent small movie, Telugu movie.
Yes, ma'am.
Bhargavi. See, in the last you can see two people will sit and represent the father who is no more, and they will be addressing on behalf of the father, who is no more, right? The grandfather goes away and he will be addressing the son, daughter-in-law, daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren and the village people, right? So on behalf of someone they are representing, that is their chorus. They are giving chorus to the voice of that particular individual. Are you getting me? See, that is again a representation of the society or representation of the people, right? So that is very important, and chorus in the drama is very, very important. That's the reason they will always have an examination point of view as well. The chorus in the play is worth of comment as it demonstrates most effectively how a mob has no religion, no faith, that they change their color from moment to moment. In the play they shift back and forth. అందుకనే మనము ఎవరన్నా తందాన తానా అంటే వాళ్ళు ఏ విధమైనటువంటి వ్యక్తిగతమైన అభిప్రాయాలు లేకుండా సమాజం ఎటువైపు వెళ్తూ ఉంటుందో అటువైపు వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడే వాళ్ళని మనము ఈ విధమైన వ్యక్తులుగా మనం చెప్తూ ఉంటాం. అంటే వాళ్ళు ఏది కూడా సొంత అభిప్రాయాలు పెట్టుకునేటువంటి అవకాశం ఉండదు. నలుగురు ఏదైతే మాట్లాడతారో అదే వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడుతూ ఉంటారు ఆ కోరస్ లో ఉన్న వాళ్ళు. అందుకనే మనం వాళ్ళని తందాన తానా అంటే ఏంటి, ఎవరు ఎస్ అంటే ఎస్, నో అంటే నో అని వెళ్ళిపోయే వాళ్ళని మనము ఆ విధమైనటువంటి కోరస్ కింద తీసుకుంటాం. No faith, no religion, they change their color from moment to moment. And see, these are all things that happens with the chorus and rhetoric money, not particularly careful of who destroyed their deeds. So we can see the chorus and how it plays an important role even in the final solutions also. Okay. Yes. Is it interesting? Is it interesting for all of you? Were you able to communicate? Very good, very good. See, we are going for the last 5 minutes. I'm discussing on Indian women poetry. This is unit 20 about individualism, patriarchy, and gender identity. We already discussed this in some of the chapters where we started with rejuvenation and page number 20.3, 165. I don't know which page number it is for you. Childhood
156, ma'am.
Very good, very good. So we can see in this Indian women poetry can be studied on 3 main themes: individualism, patriarchy, and gender, and feministic appropriations of myth, and finally childhood and memory. And all the time we repent about the childhood, right? My childhoods were good, and we always remember that. So it's a nostalgic feeling, and personal, confessional, and domestic themes are also discussed widely in this Indian women poets, especially with questions of power, social norms, and gender roles. So it is important for us to understand how Indian poetry was written after 1950s and 1960s. So with this, we completed Indian English literature paper 9. This is 9th course for us in MA English literature. And please do read again and again. It will be interesting for you to read the textbook, not the hand materials, which are guides or hand materials, but only for the examination point of view. Still, you have 40 days to write. We have 40 plus days to go for exams, and April 30th is the last day for the assignments. Do read the textbooks. Are you writing your assignments? Have you started writing? Yesterday, someone said they were not writing. Please do write the textbook, read textbook and write your assignments. Is there anything that you want to ask me, any of you? I can see Daksha, Anita, Anjum, Lavanya, Mahalakshmi, Maunika, Bhargavi, Sanjay, Ume, Ayman, Vijaya, Zeenat, Bhargavi, Purnima, Maunika. See, anyone want to add up something? Daksha, you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, in paper 8, when we were discussing, ma'am asked us to write in black ink. But already I started in blue ink. Should I write again?
No. If you have done it, just keep it, but it should be visible. Next time onwards, you continue with the other question papers with the black ink. Okay. Yes, but at the time of examination, please do use black, because it is all online and your papers are scanned. Don't write with a light colored pen.
Yes, ma'am. We'll do
that. Examinations. I'm particular about examinations. Write in a dark black colored pen, because we are going to scan your paper, and the scanned paper is going to the evaluator. Okay. For till now, whatever that is written, you just keep it like that and go ahead with your next assignments with black. Preferably black, because that will be clear for the even while scanning. That's the reason. Okay. Don't worry. Have you started writing? All of you have started writing? Adelu?
Yes, madam.
Okay. Anita?
Yes, ma'am.
Lavanya? Mahalakshmi?
Yes, ma'am.
Maunika, how many papers over? Purnima? Bhargavi?
Yes, ma'am.
1 is done, ma'am.
Still 1. Go fast. It's only 20. Keep your deadline as April 20, not 30th. Okay? Do remember, this is the last class for all of us online.
Yeah.
And from
ma'am, actually, I started with blue pen, ma'am. Rest of the papers, I should write with black pen.
Yes. Rest of the papers, you write with black pen. For the exam, it should be with black pen only, so that it will be.
Yeah, ma'am, sure.
Okay.
Yes,
only to make you remember that black pen is important. They might have said to you, but next time onwards, please do write with black pen examinations as well. Okay. Don't use any other colors. Black is important because we scan the papers, answer sheets. Don't worry now. Whatever that you completed, you keep it aside, and next paper onwards, you start with black pen. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We'll do that, ma'am. I finished assignment 6 as well as 9. Both
Very
are
good.
in blue. Both are in blue, but...
Don't worry. Whatever that is written in blue, keep it aside. Don't worry about it. But whatever that you have to write, you go ahead with black pen. Okay. Other than the pens, how many of you are not writing and who haven't started, please do start. Encourage your friends and finish before April 20th, so that it will be easy for you to read again. Okay. Yeah. And all the best for you. If you need any help, get back to me. You have my personal number. All of you, I think, even for your friends also. For any requirement from the department, and especially for the MA courses, you can reach me on my number. If I'm unable to take your call, you can keep a message. Okay. And please do come to the university whenever it is possible for you, so that if you have any doubts, we can clarify regarding the administration also, not only academics. Okay.
Yes,
Okay, ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, kindly
Ma'am,
give
we
the
don't have your
examination date.
contact.
Examination dates will be decided by the university authorities, not from the department. So the administration will take a call on that and will be informed on your website. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. All the
Ma'am,
best.
will you please share
Thank
your
you,
contact,
ma'am.
ma'am?
What, Vijaya?
Uh,
Monica, you are speaking something?
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I don't have your contact number.
Okay. Any one of you, if you are in the group, anyone can give you that number. You just ask any one of you, they can take your number. You can come back to us as well.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Monica? Okay, then. All the best.
Okay,
Take care. Happy reading. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.